Hi guys, welcome back to today's video. So in today's video, we're going to be discussing data types. So let's get started. So what are data types? So basically a data type is a type of data or a value that a variable or constant can store in it. So when looking at data types, there's actually quite a range of different possible data types. So just to go through them, so we have things such as a string, a bool, doubles, and integers, floats, dictionaries, arrays, sets. So that is quite a lot. And I won't expect you to remember them all straight away just off this one video, to be honest with you. As you code more, you'll basically just naturally just become aware of which ones to use and what they are. And it's just something that you just need to basically just practice as you code and just think to yourself which one is the best one to use. So just to go into an example of when to actually use these data types. So when we look at when to use them, some examples are, so let's assume that a new game has just came out on your favorite console. So if we had a game, obviously a game needs a title. So let's say we have a property called game title, because that's represented as a string, it would make more sense to make the game title a string. Now, it wouldn't make sense to make it an integer or a boolean because you can't use characters in those data types. So that's why we use a string, because you can have a set of characters to display the title of the game. But let's say, for example, we had like a game has age ratings. It would make more sense to give that age rating an integer. Now, why would we give the age rating an integer and not something like a double or a float where it can be a decimal point value? Well, if you look at age ratings for games, they can basically be like maybe 3, 15 or 18 plus. So that's why we gave it the age rating an integer. And if we go on to the next one, which is an average rating, so obviously each game can have an average rating. It would make more sense to give this a double. So the reason why we give it a double and not an integer is because age rating can be something like 1.5 or 4.2 or 4.5 or 5.5, whatever. So I'm hoping that you're starting to see the thinking behind the data type that you give a property. So what we're going to do now is we're going to actually step into the code and we're actually going to see this in action and basically discuss which data types we would use in another example. So let's get started. So we have our playground open here. And what we're going to do is we're just going to delete this line here because we don't actually need it. And then what we're actually going to do is we're going to basically create a set of variables and then specify the type, so you can see the type and just discuss what it is that we're going to specify the type. So what we're going to do is we're going to basically create some properties. So we're just going to create some properties for our car. And then this car is going to have a name. It's going to have a name. So the car's going to have a name. Oh, can't spell name. It's going to have a name. It's going to have a release date. So release year. It's also going to have mileage. And it's also going to have, is it an automatic car or is it a manual car? So let's do the name first. So if you think about the car name, obviously it needs to have a set of characters in it to describe what it is. So a set of letters. So it would make sense to make this a string. And we're just gonna basically just call this a BMW. I'm not the best on cars, so I don't know any car model, guys. So we're just gonna call it a BMW. And then what we're gonna do is we're also gonna basically give this car a release name. So we're gonna give it a release, sorry, not release name, a release year, like so. And then the release year is gonna be of type integer because we just want to basically do it in, like, say 2006. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna give the car a property to store the mileage. So mileage would be so mileage is going to be a double. I'm just gonna say this car, this brother who's been driving this car has been going a bit crazy. We're gonna say he's up 10,000.5 or something. And then we're going to basically add another property called is automatic. So it's the car automatic, and then that's going to be Boolean, and then we're just going to give that a value of false. So you can see here that obviously the data that we assign to the variables is pretty, makes sense. But what would happen if on one of these, I was now to basically say for this string, rather than using an actual string, if I was to basically put in the number 0, well, because we're in playgrounds, it won't break. But when I run it, you can see here in the console, it tells me that you can't use the type integer when you specify the type string. So if you basically specify a variable of a specific type, then it needs to hold the right value for it. So let's just change this back. And then actually what we're going to do now is actually going to join Fiat 500 gang. So Fiat 500. And in Swift as well, or just in programming in general, you wouldn't normally have it like this where you specify all the properties in different variables like so, because it's actually not the best practice, and you'd actually encapsulate it inside of an object. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to basically create a struct for now, and I'm actually going to do a future video on structs versus classes, but for now we're going to basically just create a struct that holds all of these values. So we just do structs, and then we're just going to call this car. And then what we're going to do here is we're just going to basically create these properties inside this struct. So let's just do that. Right, cool. Cool. So now we've got our struct. So what we would do here, because with the structs we get an automatic initializer, all we literally just do is just create a new constant. Let's create our new constant called new car, and then we'll just create an instance of this car. And you can see when you use the you type car and then you use the parentheses, we get all the properties. So for the name, I'm just gonna put Fiat 500. And then release here, I'm going to say 2004. And then for mileage, we're just going to put in 12,000.64. And then automatic, we're going to say false, because I'm pretty sure Fiat 500s don't have automatic cars, but I might be wrong. Correct me if I am. So when we compare the two, so we just say this is example A and example B. It's actually a lot cleaner in example B, because let's say for example if we wanted to basically create a brand new car, so a second car, we could just do new car 2, then we can just easily just do something like this. But let's say for example we use example A, we actually can't create new copies of a car because we only have the one set of variables here. So when you're working with data types for properties, one thing to think about is if I need to use these properties in multiple places and they relate to one common thing, then it might make sense to actually refactor this into something like a struct or a class. Now, making a decision between a struct and a class is in a separate video, because there's pros and cons to using each one, and you do want to make sure that you use the right one in the right scenario. But in our example here, where we have all these properties, it makes sense for us to put it inside of something like a struct or a class, because we don't want to have to create another set of properties like name 1, name 2, so we just literally just want to put it inside of a brand new object. So let's go back to the presentation and let's discuss the challenge that I've set for you guys. So when looking at the data type challenge, what I want you guys to do is to create a set of variables and decide on the appropriate data type. And with these variables, I want you to basically have a username and a height and an age, and if the user has been on holiday. So basically, I want you to create a person. So think about, does this set of properties, do they relate to each other? So should it be in a struct? Should it not be in a struct? What's the correct data types for the username, for the height, for the age, if the user's been on holiday? And then we'll discuss this in the next video where we go through the solution. So that's everything in today's videos, guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you have any feedback as well, leave them in the comment sections. If that's it, I'll catch you guys in a bit. Deuces.